Hello and welcome. If we haven't met before, my name is Jillian Rakusin-Kornmeyer, and I have the privilege to serve as the Executive Director of the Foundation for Social Connection. On behalf of the Foundation and Healthy Places by Design, it is a joy to welcome you to the 2025 Social Connection Conference. As I was preparing my remarks, I was reflecting on the progress we have made as an organization and as a field through collaboration and collective action. By a show of hands, how many of you were with us in 2023 in Boston? And maybe keep those hands raised if you kept a connection up there that you met, that you've continued to chat with throughout the years. Wonderful. You can put those hands down. And now I want to hear from our new friends. If you are a first timer to one of our gatherings, please raise your hand. Amazing, oh my goodness. We have so many new friends here with us and we're so excited. And some of our friends who've been with us before, make sure you reach out to someone new to say hello. That is what this convening is all about. Connection that lasts beyond the walls of a conference room, bringing these relationships, learnings, and experiences into our communities and our work. We are gathered again for our shared purpose, cultivating ideas that influence how we think about, invest in, and build social connection. And we chose the theme Seeds of Connection this year because change doesn't happen all at once. It starts small like a seed, is nurtured by community, and then grows into something that can transform lives. And why Atlanta? This influential city is a place where ideas and movements take root. A city with a deep history of resilience, courage, and change. In 2023, we co-hosted a community listening session in partnership with Atlanta-based nonprofit The Same House, a wonderful organization working to bring the community together and help bridge social and economic divides. Atlanta has shown great support for our collective mission, and we'd like to thank Mayor Diggins' office and our local advisors for your generosity during our planning process. Social connection can mean many things to each of us, but for me, it became deeply personal about 369 days ago. My beautiful son, Miles, was born a month early and wasn't quite ready to be out in the world. A NICU experience wasn't one I ever thought I'd find myself in. I wrote about my postpartum experience earlier this year, where amidst the immense joy, there were many challenges, moments of doubt, and bouts of isolation. What got me through this experience wasn't just my perseverance, it was truly my village, my family, friends, coworkers, colleagues, the women at the front desk of my apartment building, and yes, the barista at the local neighborhood cafe. It was the reminder of the very purpose we are gathered here for today. My conviction to this mission is not only professional, it is personal. And here he is this past weekend on his first birthday. And so I want to ask you, what is your why? Think back to a moment, a time in your life where you felt truly connected. Maybe it was on a team, in a work group, with a circle of friends, or a recent moment with family. A time where you felt valued, seen, and a part of something bigger than yourself. A time of true belonging. How did that feel? What did it sound like, look like, smell like? I'll kindly ask you to hold on to that feeling because that is the energy that we want to bring into this conference, into this work, and into the seeds we plant together. At the Foundation for Social Connection, we believe in this mission deeply. We believe in a vibrant society where social connection is at the heart of how we live. Earlier this month, I was struck when I heard from a wise teacher. He shared his thoughts on the times we are living in. He quoted the ancient hymn, "Those who sow in tears will reap with joy. Those who plant in anguish will see abundance in the harvest to come." And whether we see that in this generation or for our children's children, we have a duty to leave a legacy that welcomes harvest times, to continue planting, perhaps in tears, for the generations to come. And we are committed, not just in words, but in action. And today, on behalf of our partners and our friends and our board members, we want to share our commitment with you to reach 27 by 2027, a vision to bring our initiatives, programs, and partnerships to 27 communities across the country by 2027. And we cannot do this work alone, By collaborating, sharing resources, and bright spots, we can grow our impact, breadth, and depth even further. And what a few days we have planned for you. You'll hear from leading experts, engage in interactive experiences, and connect with each other in ways that ripple far beyond the four walls of this conference. Together, you'll plant the seeds through conversations, collaborations, and commitments that can grow into real, lasting change. Of course, none of this would be possible. Okay. Of course, none of this would be possible without the incredible generosity of our sponsors, the hard work of the Foundation for Social Connection team, and our co-hosts at Healthy Places by Design. Risa Wilkerson and her team have been important partners of the Foundation since our inception and are invaluable to our community initiatives work. You will hear from Risa a little later on today. Please join me in thanking them for making this gathering possible. And now I am honored to introduce our opening keynote, Planting Seeds, a conversation about connection and community, which will set the tone for the next 3 days. Please welcome to the stage Moderator Karabi Acharya, Senior Director of Research Evaluation and Learning at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, panelist John A. Powell, Director of the Othering and Belonging Institute at UC Berkeley, and Suzanne McCormick, President and CEO of the YMCA of the USA. Thank you, and let's begin.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to be here in Atlanta, although I was expecting slightly warmer weather. It's a little chilly for me. Well, thank you, Jillian, and I'm so excited to be here. This is my first time at this conference, and I'm really excited to meet all of you and to participate in the next 3 days together. But before introducing our panelists, I wanted to start with a little bit of a story and framing for how the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation got involved in the field of social connection and social isolation. So back in 2017, we convened a group of advisors, and we asked them to tell us what are the most important global trends that you are seeing that impact health equity. And through the course of a conversation over an hour, these 8 people who were from all over the world, from every sector, from government to civil society to private sector, they unanimously said the thing that we are most concerned about globally for health equity is social isolation. And we were stunned. This was long before COVID. This was long before the Surgeon General sounded the alarm. We were really surprised that this was their number one concern. And that really began our work at the foundation in terms of learning about this issue and this field. And we've come a long way since then. Since then, it seems to be the topic of conversation. Everyone seems to be talking about it in many circles, far beyond even academic and practitioner circles. We see it in pop culture and the corporate world. And I came across this example, if we can pull up the slide. So this is a picture of a Coca-Cola bottle. Of course, we're in Atlanta, the birthplace of Coca-Cola, so we had to have a Coke example. This is a bottle that can only be opened with another Coke bottle. And they put this out on college campuses in Colombia, the country of Colombia, as a way for new students to just break the ice. And I just thought, what a brilliant example. So, everyone is involved in social connection these days. You can take the slide down. So, generally speaking, I don't believe in magic bullets. I think our problems are too big, too nuanced, too locally contextualized. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all. Except, I'm beginning to think that maybe social connection could be that magic bullet. You all know, everyone in this room knows the many, many benefits of social connection, from physical and mental health to economics and academic performance. We all know it could be the difference between life and death in an emergency or a disaster. So I'm beginning to think just maybe that might be our magic bullet. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that over the next few days. So I'm really thrilled to be moderating this panel today. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things, including the value of cross-sector collaboration, solutions that are giving us hope, and importantly, the role of systems, institutions, and collective action in creating strong connections. And I'll just very briefly introduce our panelists. Their full bios are online, so I'm really honored to be on a panel with both of you. John Powell leads the Othering and Belonging Institute at University of California, Berkeley, and has helped us all see that belonging is not just a feeling, but it's a societal design. Suzanne McCormick is the president and CEO of the YMCA of the USA, where she's leading one of the nation's most trusted community institutions to be a home for connection in every neighborhood. So thank you so much for being here. And as Jillian mentioned, we unfortunately have one less panelist, but we hope to have a really robust conversation this afternoon. So I wanted to start a little bit with, why does social connection matter, and how does disconnection show up in your work? And John, maybe we'll start with you. Your work on othering gets at the fears and pressures that keeps people apart. And how are you seeing those dynamics at this moment?
Well, first of all, it's a delight to be here. It's a delight to be here with you. And I had a chance to meet your father, so thank you, Suzanne. Great to be with you. These are really important issues. And to some extent, it's hard to sort of boil it down, but let me try. One way of thinking about it is that we don't become human unless we're in relationship. We've had the privilege and pleasure to hear about a couple of newborns. Think about it. You're born physically attached to another person. It's not a metaphor. And we cut the umbilical cord, but we should not ever try to cut the spiritual umbilical cord. And when we look at things, when we think about the pandemic that we just went through, actually literally wrote the World Health Organization because they said, make sure you keep 6 feet distance from everybody. And I said, that's a serious mistake. They said social distance was really important. I said, no, physical distance was important, social connection was important. And they actually changed it on their website. And those of us who follow this know that we're still suffering from that social disconnection. And Karabi, a number of people, including Harari, who wrote the book *Sapien*, he says, if there's a superpower to humans, if there's a superpower to Homo sapiens, not humans, because there are a lot of humans who apparently didn't develop this superpower, it's collaboration. And it's about 70,000 years old. And almost everything that we've done is because of our ability to collaborate and create larger we's, from small hunter-gatherers of 100 to 250 to nations, to billions of people connected through stories and through imaging. And that's our superpower. And I'll just end by saying this for now. When we look at this, and I've written some books about it, when we look at this, every human society, every major religion, every organization of humans has always been about social connection, belonging. We call it belonging. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Confucianism, all of it's about belonging. The nation state is about belonging. But most of those expressions also had a categorical belonging and a categorical othering. You belong, you don't belong. You belong, you don't belong. And that's what we're seeing today, the fight around who belongs, who is in that social connection. And what we say is we have to We must, if we're going to survive as a species, as a planet, we have to create belonging without othering. We have to create belonging where there is no other. That's the challenge. So not only is that the magic bullet, it's the goal of human life, is to create belonging without othering. And we try that, and we have structures and systems and stories to make it harder, but we have to keep our eyes on the prize.
Thanks so much, John. Suzanne, you've got a particular view into how this plays out at the neighborhood level, and would love to hear, especially now in this moment, what are you seeing in terms of social connection or disconnection at the neighborhood level?
Well, I'm gonna build on you. You took us all the way back to Homo sapiens. I'm gonna be a little more contemporary, and we at the YMCA, we're gonna celebrate our 175th anniversary next year on December 6, 2026. And our origin story, that's in the United States. We were 4 years younger, started in England. And I want to share, our origin story was around belonging and connection. It was not exclusive of othering either, and we can talk about that. But I just want to share the origin story. It was in the mid-1800s when industrialization was happening in England, and so all these young men were coming into newly industrialized London, leaving their agricultural backgrounds where they were very much a part of big families, strong social networks, and then they found themselves in London working in really horrible conditions in factories. And a young man named George Williams, he was 22 years old, he was one of those young men, and he looked around and he saw all these other young men who were disconnected from their families, their small towns. They were lonely, they were tempted by all kinds of bad temptations, and just not living healthy lives. And we were formed as a Bible study for 20 young men. So it started only for men. But the whole purpose was to create connection where connection wasn't existing, and to help support people, to support each other. And that has evolved over time. That is our origin story. It continues to be our origin story. Our contemporary story today is everything we do at the Y is about creating connection. And we say that we do. You walk into any Y in any neighborhood and you'll see all kinds of activities. You'll see kids in swim lessons. You'll see childcare. You'll see camp. You'll see people focused on their health and wellness. You'll see seniors sitting having coffee. And sometimes we say that we do a million different things, but I like to say we do one thing a million different ways, and that is about creating connection and helping feel like they belong. And I'm so proud that today we're an organization as the Y. We still have YMCA. We are by no means only about the young, by no means only about men, by all means not at all only about Christians. We really are a place where people can come and set their differences aside and feel like they belong. And we, at this point in time, on the eve of our 175th anniversary, we are on the verge of rolling out our next big, bold vision for Ys around the country for the next 10 years. And that new strategy, it's not a new strategy, it's a re-articulated strategy, is our whole focus is going to be on how we combat the crisis of social isolation and disconnectedness. That is going to be our North Star for the next 10 years, and everything we do, we're going to organize around that. I'm also really excited. We've got a cool new marketing campaign that's going to roll out with it. It's called No Place Like This Place, and we want to invite, our Ys want to invite their communities to reappraise them, to reconnect with them, because we believe while all these forces are pulling people apart, we can help lead our country in pulling people back together. And so we're anchoring to our foundations of why we were started, and going to really double down on how we intentionally try to create stronger connections, a sense of belonging, and absolutely not othering.
That's really exciting. That's really exciting, especially when you think about I think there's a Y in, what, every 100
We're in
yards?
26, so we have 2,600 locations, but I like to remind people that there's so much Y programming that happens outside of the walls of a Y. So much of our programming happens in schools, for example, or in community centers. So, but yeah, we are in 2,600 communities around the country.
Incredible, incredible. Well, as predicted, you're already getting into solutions, both of you, in terms of thinking about, okay, how do we, tackle the issue of loneliness and social isolation? And John, you talk a lot about bridging. You've written a book about bridging, which I highly recommend. Tell us about the concept of bridging and some examples where you've seen it work particularly well.
Well, thank you again for the question. So once we have these separations, they feel real, they feel natural, they feel inevitable. And they are real in the social sense, but we made them up. We create reasons and ways to separate ourselves from each other. And it's not just separate ourselves. In some ways, it's worse than it's worse than just isolation. Because we learn that the other, we learn to be contemptuous of the other. We learn to be afraid of the other. And who's the other? We make that up. We make that up. The other, it can be race, it can be gender, it can be age, it can be this. Rwanda, which was one of the worst genocides of the 20th century, these people had lived together, the same race, same religion, same language, same food, and yet they eventually start cutting each other up with machetes. And one of the reasons they did, they told the story that if you have less than 3 cows, you don't belong. You're the other. And not only are you the other, you're a threat to our civilization. So once it was in place, it was like, of course you wouldn't relate to someone with only 2 cows. Who would do that? When we look at race, it's the same thing. Race is a story. And so when we have these huge divisions, and they're not just divisions in our head, think about it. Think about the neighborhood you live in. Think about zoning. Think about the schools your children go to. Think about where you go to worship. All these things reflect this kind of separation. And then it was like, well, how do you talk to those people who call God Allah, who call God nature? And bridging is what helps us do that. So bridging says when you have this difference, and this difference seems so real, how do we connect to them? And literally we talk about short bridges, which was maybe someone, your cousin or your sister or your brother who you pissed at for 5 years because they didn't give you back your favorite mug, right? But you have a lot in common. Then you think about people who you don't like the same movies, you don't read the same books, you don't live in the same neighborhood, you don't vote for the same party. I could never imagine being in a relationship with those people. We call those long bridges. But bridging is basically saying, how do you connect? How do you connect? And just 2 quick things. So part of it is physical. Part of it is you need a place, an institution sometimes to be a crucible to hold people together. If people don't come together, how do you get them together? Maybe at the Y, maybe at school. But you need a place that people have some trust in so they can come to the Y feeling like it's probably going to be okay no matter what I believe in, no matter how I think about God. And then bridging is about connecting, not about persuading. So people's like, how do I talk to my cousin and convince them that they were wrong in what they did? Well, good luck with that, And persuasion is not bad, but it's not bridging. The heart of bridging is seeing each other's humanity. So bridging is actually more from the heart than from the head. It's basically saying, I see your humanity. Your humanity counts. It doesn't mean I agree with you. It doesn't mean we're going to vote for the same candidate. It doesn't mean I'm going to invite you home. But it means I see your humanity, and I hold on to that. And I'll just end by saying we have a conference. We're going to have one next year in St. Louisville, Kentucky. I hope all of you come. We hired a conference, and I was talking about bridging, and I said, everyone belongs in the circle of human concern. And the circle of human concern also includes the earth. Humus means of the earth. So all life is in the circle of concern. And someone asked the question, what about the Koch brothers? They thought that was a hard question. Easy. Of course the Koch brothers. Doesn't mean you like their politics. Doesn't mean you dislike their politics. But it does mean you recognize their humanity. So bridging is about moving from the heart, seeing another person's suffering, seeing another person's humanity. And then there's a lot of things, techniques, how you do it, what conditions, and what kind of environment, institutions you need to support bridging.
Thank you, John. I'm going to push you a little bit on that one about in terms of bridging, in terms of seeing someone else's humanity. And I think some people would say, well, I can see that person's humanity, but they don't see my humanity. And tell us how you respond to that.
You know, that's a question that comes up a lot. So first of all, my father was a Christian minister. And some of you may know Arthur Brooks. He wrote a book called Love Your Enemy. I'm in the book, and I say, who's the enemy, Arthur? But anyway, where's Arthur getting that from? Arthur Brooks, some of you may not know, he was head of the American Enterprise Institute, which is a big conservative think tank. So, some people say, okay, this radical black guy from Berkeley is talking about bridging, talking about seeing someone's humanity. Why should we listen to him? Don't. Listen to somebody else. What was that guy, the guy who used to walk around here with wine and, you know who I'm talking about, the carpenter? Oh yeah, Jesus. Right? Love thy enemy. What was the radical thing about Jesus? He said, all of us are children of God. He was Jewish, right? He was saying, no. There's no chosen people. We all belong. We all belong. Now, let's come look closer. Suzanne doesn't like me going too far back, so I'm going to come closer to when the Y was formed. There was some guy who was smart. He studied Greek philosophy. He spoke different languages. He traveled the world. You know what I'm talking about, right? Thomas Jefferson, that's his name. What did he help write in the Declaration of Independence? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, right, he hadn't corrected that, all men are created equal. And you would say, I'm pushing back, because you had 600 people enslaved. How could you say all men are created equal? And yet, it's much more complicated than that. And he's saying, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Prove it. No. They're self-evident. They're given. That we all have dignity. That we all matter. I could go on, but I'll give you just one more for now. There was a battle in the United States, still the worst battle in our history. 51,000 people were killed in over 3 days. What battle am I talking about? Gettysburg, you're right. And Lincoln, who was sitting as the commander-in-chief when the United States was going through the worst battle that it would ever face, he comes up and he gives the Gettysburg Address. And he did get pushed back because he was saying, and he gave more than one address. He talked about we all are of the same family. We've been affected by passion, but we should not let it turn into disdain. He wasn't a Berkeley hippie. He was bridging in the midst of the worst war that we'd ever experienced. So this is what I would say. If you have someone that you go home to at night, that you eat food with at night, that you raise your kids with, that bridge is a very short bridge. You don't need to bridge with that person. Bridging only becomes real when you're dealing with conflict. Can you hold on to someone's humanity when you're dealing with conflict? Okay, last example. The United States government today have been rounding up people, sending them to another country, not their country, sending them to another country, sending them to a jail where they don't get to talk to a lawyer, where they don't get to talk to their families, where they have no rights. And the argument for that is that these are bad people. They're criminals. They're drug dealers. They hate the United States. They're gang members. And there was a debate going back and forth between the liberals and conservatives, because the conservatives were saying, these people should have never been in our country. Liberals were saying, they're not drug dealers. They're not criminals. They're not gangbangers. They're decent human beings. And David French nailed it. He said, you all have missed the point. Under our Constitution, twice we say, everyone, not Americans, not nice people, not Republicans or Democrats, everyone is entitled to due process. He went further. He said, even if they were Nazis, they're still entitled to due process. What does due process mean? Now, this is in our Constitution twice, not once, but twice. Due process means that everyone gets to tell their story to an impartial arbitrator. That's a really powerful thing that we should hold on to. So yeah, it does. You don't have to. So even the person who thinks your humanity is not real, still you have to recognize their humanity. And if you don't, how are you different than them? How are you different than them? So we're reaching for something powerful. So the person who says we're not connected. I'm sorry to be going on so long, but I'll end by James Baldwin. He says, we're hopelessly and forever a part of each other. He says, some of my countrymen find that unfair. And he says, at times, so do I. But none of us can do anything about it. We are a part of each other. It's not an idea. We just don't live it. And so the person who don't see it, who don't live it, are they going to set the table, or are you?
That was beautiful. I could sit and listen to you all day.
I'd come to the Y all day, too.
It's a date.
Wonderful, John. Thank you. Thank you for that. Suzanne, I want to go back to the sort of that neighborhood level and the really beautiful vision that you laid out, that the Y is, sort of your new North Star. And at least, as I was listening to John talk, I was thinking that really that is the vision that you are kind of setting up the Y to do, to be that space, to be a place where that bridging can happen. So can you talk a little bit more about sort of the details of that? What is that going to look like in practice on the ground?
Yeah, I'm going to share a couple examples, but John, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about the conversations that we had over lunch and, the conversation about how do you, when you don't feel hopeful, how do you, what are the mechanisms? You have to be intentional sometimes. I think as I was listening to you, the word that came to my mind was idealism. This bridging, and you have to revert back to your idealism too sometimes, I think. It's making me think of my younger self when I believed anything was possible, and I still want to believe everything is possible, and I make myself believe everything is possible. So thank you for that. A couple things. I want to tell you about one specific initiative that I think really illustrates or exemplifies partnership, and that this is not just the why, this is all of this work takes. We're going to be better if we do it together. I want to share an example of that. But, as I said, we feel like every day when you walk into a Y or in a Y program, we say we are for all. We are about building a place where anyone feels like they belong. And given all that you just shared, we also know that human beings with differences walk into our Ys. And so for us, as we are rolling out this North Star on creating connected communities and creating a place like no place like this place, is we have to do our work. We have to do our work with our staff and our volunteers to help them be more intentional about how they think about creating connections. And we have to think without question outside of the walls of our Ys. Because for us, this vision is about what happens in a Y, but it's bigger than that. We want this to be a vision for how our communities look different in the future. And we're actually using a model, Karabi, that the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation helped us put in place, I don't know if it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when at the time, the challenge or the epidemic or the crisis that we were trying to address was obesity and lack of physical activity. And we created this framework that we called Pioneering Healthy Communities. And we went out and we taught our Ys how to get outside of the walls of your facilities, how to build partnerships, how to bring your community together around a shared vision. And we had fabulous results because it wasn't just us. We had really clear metrics that we were working on. And so we're dusting off that framework that you all helped us develop and put in place in communities around the country, and using that now, and we're going to put the crisis of isolation as at the center of that. Like that's the problem that we're going after. Right now we have about 30 Ys that are piloting some just real things that they need to do differently to create more intentional connections when somebody walks into the Y, to create more connection in communities so people want to be a part of this effort. And so it's some really tactical things. Like part of it's like how you train your staff, like how you greet people, all the things that we practiced over lunch today. When, like really, honestly, my friends, when was the last time you spent an hour going that deep in conversation over lunch or after lunch? And so those are the kinds of things we're looking at. What can we introduce into our interactions with people when they're with us that create connection between us and them, but also help them create connections with each other? One of the initiatives that we kicked off a year ago was one of my favorite partnerships that we have. It's a partnership that the YUSA has with Habitat for Humanity International, Catholic Charities USA, and Interfaith America. And we call this Team Up. And it is a bridge building initiative built on a lot of your methodology that our team has studied and learned from. We have about 60 teams around the country. We've been teaching volunteers and staff how to build those small bridges and bigger bridges through activity and conversation, really centered around a shared activity or a shared goal. The theory being that once people have some relationship with each other, then they can start to build bridges. So we have, as I said, we got 60 local teams, and they're doing activities like hosting community dinners or teaching teens who are working with middle schoolers from very different communities how to engage in the kinds of activities that we participated in to actually create connections. So we hope that's going to be models that other organizations can use. It is about sitting with each other and being willing to explore getting to know each other as a first start.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's because it is those sort of small things, those interactions, the welcome. There is so many of it are these small practices. I wanted to talk about something that you both have referenced, which is sort of the role of institutions, the role of what some people call third spaces, and maybe in contrast to sort of what individuals can do. So there is a lot, I think, that individuals can do, and you've both talked about some of that. But there is also a lot that, as a society, we can create conditions that foster the bridging, foster the social connection. And so I would love for each of you, maybe we'll start with you, John, to talk about the role of these sort of third spaces and kind of more social design, and how you see that in conjunction with sort of individual actions.
Well, you need both, right? I mean, so there's and they're not the same. The techniques you use are different. So, for example, in institutions, you need clarity, you need safety, you need leadership. So, take an institution like the Y, or like a school. Send my daughter to school. Is she safe? That's the first thing I want to know. Is she safe? So the school, they create a space of safety or not. And so that's what institutions do. Institutions signal the people coming in here are safe. And leadership matter. Leadership matters a lot. So one of the things, and I can't say too much about it because for obvious reasons when I say it, we bring people from the U.S. Senate, Republicans and Democrats together. I think we had 7 meetings so far. They don't want it to be publicized. There's a sense that if their constituencies knew they were meeting, having dinner with each other, they would be voted out of office. And so everybody's sort of part of the reasons that we're having this deep fragmentation is people's effort to belong. So a lot of the othering that goes on is an effort to belong. And so I'm told if I want to belong, I have to hate you. If you want to belong, you have to hate me. And in a sense, I really want to belong. So I'm willing to hate you if that's the ticket. That's the price of the ticket. So leaders can set a crucible and say, it's okay to meet with those people who are Republicans. It's okay. We actually talked to some people and they said, there's no neutral space in Washington. Every space is fraught with power and hierarchy and threat. And so you don't have a lot of bridging there. And yet at the same time, we work with groups who literally have been killing each other. We work with people in Colombia, with the military and with families who have been killed. And we brought them into situations together. And under the right circumstances, they could talk. Under the right circumstances, they could begin to see each other's humanity. And the real secret to it is listening. But institutions have to create larger containers. Institution containers, I'll give you one nice example. Think about the United States and China. Right now we're in a situation, and I just met with the Quincy Institute, which is in Washington. Everything that says China in Americans' imagination now is bad. The China virus, we have to be China at everything, not just at ping pong, at AI, at this, at that. And I've spent time in China, I've been to China, and I'm not a booster for China. But we can't just dismiss 1.4 billion people and just, they're all bad and we're all good. We all make mistakes. So, but if you don't adhere to that, your own government will challenge you. Why are you going to China? Why are you talking to those people? So institutions can create a safe space or not. And Levy, who writes about this, basically say that the role of institutions is different than the role of individuals, and it must be, as Susanna was saying, must be deliberate. We have to deliberately create space and invite those people in. And the heart of belonging is not just having people together, it's having people co-create the space they're in. So have the people who are present co-create the space that they're in, that they need to be fully belong.
Yeah, thank you. I have to say, we've been talking about what brings us hope. The image of a group of Republicans and Democrats meeting in secret with you gives me a lot of hope. So let's, yeah. Suzanne, I think one of I didn't know this before preparing for this session, but the Y is one of the most trusted institutions in the United States across party lines, across all differences. And I would love for you to talk about why you think that's so, and especially because, as you noted the history, it was for young Christian men at one point, and yet now, as an institution, you've really, you are inclusive and you've built that trust. And so I would love for you to talk about the trust and how you've built it and how you think about it and how it will sort of serve this bigger mission that you're looking to do.
Well, I think the good news for, how many people here work for a nonprofit? I'm going to see most hands. Okay. So I don't know if you know this or not, but happening concurrently is the Independent Sectors Conference is happening in Atlanta right now. And I was there for the opening this morning and talking about the state of the nonprofit sector. The good news for all of us is, while trust is down for all institutions, trust in nonprofits is higher than corporations, government. I mean, it's not off the charts high, but it's good news for us, and so we need to capitalize on that. And so when I talk about trust in the why, I do that in the context of we are one of you, and so what you're doing helps our trust as well. As I said, we've been doing a lot of planning around our new North Star, creating connected communities, our 175th anniversary, and we decided we wanted to do a little polling, because before we go public with this, look, we are the why, there is no place like the why, we are going to own and we are going to lead creating connection in this country. We wanted just to do a little reality check and make sure we got credibility to do that. We felt like we did, so we did some polling, and what we found was, this is recent, is that we really do score high in trust from all kinds of people, shapes, sizes, colors, ages, politics. And it wasn't really surprising to me. I've been in my role for 4 years with the organization, just based on what I see in our whys. But the polling told us that there are very high levels of trust. And I think part of it is because we have been here for 175 years. And we have demonstrated through our lifetime our ability to see what is happening in the world, see where there are gaps, and then move into those spaces. We were some of the early providers of childcare, for example, when women were going into the workplace. So that was something that we saw we needed. So I think through all the Great Depression, through World War II, we were there, we helped start the USO. We've been this organization that is part of the social fabric of the United States. And when we see something, we adapt. So I say that it has to do with our responsiveness and our relevancy. I think as nonprofit leaders, if you think about, am I being responsive and am I relevant as the key ingredients to building trust? It is also how people feel when they walk into your space. One of my favorite stories to tell, and this builds on what you said, it's about the tone of leadership. And one of my first Ys that I visited in this role was a small Y in Athens, Georgia. Athens, Georgia is a pretty conservative part of the country. When I was there, I was talking with the CEO, we were talking about belonging. How do you create this feeling when people come here that they're not thinking about otherness or difference, they're thinking about the fact that, I belong here. And she said to me in her sweet Southern accent, she said, Suzanne, when you walk into the Y, we were talking about politics too. She's like, when you walk into the Y, you are not a D, you are not an R, you are a Y. You are a Y kid, a Y senior, a Y mom, a Y dad. And that for me really captured the ideal that we want to live towards and how we lead our organizations.
I love
But
that.
I don't take trust lightly. Every day we feel like we have to get up and we have to prove it and earn it.
Yeah.
But I think it's relevancy and responsiveness has been what has worked for us.
Yeah. Great story. Before we get to our final question, I wanted to ask you both about the role of media and culture. There's so much to be said, and if you want to go into the technology aspect of that, feel free. But John, let me start with you. How do you think about media and culture in its ability to both bridge and also create othering, right?
Well, it's actually it's a double-edged sword. Only one part of the sword is bigger than the other. One edge is to, you go back to the heady days of, Facebook and internet, and the whole notion is they're going to bring us together. It hasn't quite worked out that way. And I do a lot of work with AI. I was talking to Thomas about this. And if you think the internet was corrosive in terms of pulling people apart, fake news, you ain't seen nothing yet. Literally, AI is about to explode things. And so it could be a tool for good. It could deal with isolation, but it could also be used to actually create these echo chambers where we're not talking to each other. I mean, that's part of the problem, that we're not in relationship with each other. And in relationship with each other, not where we're trying to score points or win, but we're really trying to listen to each other. So culture is collective meaning making. You come together with people and you know, it's like, and meaning is different than facts, right? It's like we all agree that something happened on January 6th. We don't agree on what it means. And culture is a space for us to come together and thrash that out collectively, right? But the way we have with fragmented media now, we don't come together collectively. I go to my, favorite sites, you go to yours, they never cross each other. We sort of point at each other, and we tell stories about each other, not stories from each other. So how do we really listen to each other's stories? How do we actually build a collective story? The media could be a tool for that, but where we are right now and where we're headed is in the opposite direction. The media is right now, social media in particular, is an extreme form of isolation, extreme form of paranoia, extreme form of othering. It wouldn't have to be that way, but that's the way it is right now.
Yeah, thanks. Suzanne, would love to hear your thoughts.
I don't have anything scholarly to add. I'll just add my personal perspective. As I was listening to you talk earlier, John, too, I was thinking about, there is this, we've created this prevalent culture of enemies. It is the old, zero-sum game. No more of the win-win. We've gone back to that. And I feel like media absolutely perpetuates that. My strategies for living in the world right now, that's all I can really share, is I try to enjoy a good news diet whenever I can, which means just don't I don't even want to look at the news. Or I try to make myself see the news from two well-known opposing perspectives. And I try to make myself listen to both of them to hear the middle ground. For me personally, I'm able to deal with it. I was raised as a middle child of divorced parents. And so I learned to live in the gray and learn to listen for what is truth on either side of a relationship. And that's how I survive personally in the world today, is I always try to listen for a little bit of truth from across the spectrum. Yeah. I don't know if that's advice or not, but it scares me. I mean, it really does. It's going to take a cultural revolution to get back to people wanting goodness and connection versus this division, which I think people, for some reason, is feeding them.
I know we're almost out of time, but that's two quick things. We're here in Atlanta. When Martin Luther King was a young preacher just starting off, he was headed home with his wife and children, and he got delayed. And when he got home, his home had been blown up. And there were 5,000 people saying, we got to do something. And what he said we have to do is forgive. I mean, we're in the heart, we talk about bridging. I mean, it was a perfect opportunity to talk about the other, but that's not what he talked about. So it really takes courage to say, I'm not going to buy into a zero-sum game, which is, once you buy into that, it doesn't matter which side you're on, we all lose. So can we insist that everybody's life counts? Every community matters. And that's what we try to do at the Other End Belonging Institute. And we know it's hard, right? But what's the alternative?
Yeah. We are coming up on time, and but I would love to hear from each of you just a short story, maybe something that's happened recently, something that gives you hope that we will be able to build a connected future. Suzanne, I don't know if you want to start.
I will tell you, it is the great privilege of and maybe you'll say she lives in a different universe, but it is the great privilege of my position that I do get to travel and visit YMCAs and their programs around the country. And it is nearly impossible for me to go visit a Y and not come away hopeful, because in every Y I go into, I will see people in joyful fellowship with each other. And it just gives me hope. One of my favorite stories is I was visiting the YMCA in Anchorage, Alaska, and it was about 10:30 in the morning when I got there. The pool was full of about 50 senior citizens, all of whom were doing their water aerobics. But the CEO there wanted me to meet one special woman. She was 100 years old. Her name was Maureen Lufstra. So I knelt down on the edge of the pool. She swam over, and she welcomed me to her Y, and invited me to, after swim class, to join she and the other seniors there in the Maureen Lufstra community room for coffee and donuts. Because she had lost her family, and this is the place she came every single day to feel connected, to belong, to be loved, and to commune with people. And I get to see those stories repeated over and over and over again, so it is impossible for me to not have hope.
That's wonderful. Thank you. John, what's giving you hope for a connected future?
So I don't know if I have hope, but I don't have despair either. I say to people, I share it at my table, that there's a plaque in my house which says, not an optimist or a pessimist, but a possibilist. And I feel like hope is nostalgia for the future. I feel like we have agency. We need to use that agency. And the biggest part of the agency is really love. And I really do believe in love. I'll tell you a very quick story. First of all, I came from this incredibly loving family. I have 3 wonderful children, and the age range would shock you, so I'm not going to tell you that. Mary knows about this. But I was asked to go talk to some Trump supporters, and I'm not a Trump supporter, excuse me for those of you who are, about why they should support the Affordable Care Act. And it was about 700 people. It was in rural Arkansas. They were all white. My host, before I went on stage, said, we had someone here a month ago talking about the same topic. And they got booed off stage. Good luck. And I walked onto the stage, and I told a lie. I said, it's so nice to be here. But I said, before I give my formal remarks, I want you to do something. I want you to stand up and talk about your experience with healthcare, your experience with insurance. And then if other people have that same experience, stand up. And people start talking about losing their insurance when the kid got sick, losing their insurance when they lost their job, the doctor prescribing something, the insurance company saying no. And now everybody's standing up. And I said, tell me how that felt. And now they start cussing. Nobody's arms are folded anymore. And I said, this is what the Affordable Care Act is trying to fix. You could hear a pin drop. And the upshot of it is, when I got ready to leave, they said to the host, can you get this guy to come back? And he said, how did you do that? And I said, I listened to them. I listened to their story. They felt seen. There's a South African word called sabawanu, which means I see you. It also means the divine in me sees the divine in you. And the research is actually quite powerful, that when people feel seen, it's the most persuasive thing you can do. But if you're just seeing someone just to persuade them, you're not really seeing them. So how do we just really connect? We didn't change politics, I don't know, but they felt seen, and they liked me. And someone said, yeah, you know, you pretend like you care. I said, I wasn't pretend, I really do care. And so our ability to care for each other is really the secret, to help people belong and to bridge.
Beautiful, beautiful story. So I'm going to share what is giving me hope for a connected future, and I'm going to do two quick ones. The first is, as John mentioned, I have my father here with me today. He's almost 89 years old, and he knows the name of every grocery store clerk that he frequents, every pharmacist, every bank teller. Yes, he still goes into the bank. And it reminds me of maybe how things used to be, and it reminds me that, you know, maybe I should go into the bank once in a while. The second story that really gives me hope is by sheer luck and coincidence, I happened to be in Rome when the new pope was announced in May. And I was staying actually right next to St. Peter's Square, and I, along with everyone else in Rome, started running to the square. And it was thousands and thousands and thousands of people just running to this square, including these, elderly nuns in their habits, just flying. And people were just had big grins on their face and just, because no one knew who it was yet. They'd seen the white smoke, nobody knew who it was yet. And I found myself swept up in this crowd of people, and I am not Catholic, I'm not even particularly religious, but I was there to see it, and there were flags from every country you could imagine, and to be in a sea of, I think, over 10,000 people in a square in Vatican City, and to be part of this moment reminded me of something, an idea that I learned in grad school called collective effervescence, right? This idea that there's a beauty and an otherworldliness that comes when we are together as a collective. And it was an incredibly hopeful moment. I want to thank you both for our conversation today, and I really look forward to the rest of the conference.